What's up, YouTube friends? Now, a lot of you know that I love canning, and one of the biggest problems I have are burnt fingertips. After putting the lids on 14 hot jars, my tootsies are on fire. So today, I'm going to show you how to make this hot jar canning mitt that'll save my fingers from getting burnt off. I'll show you how fast and easy it is to whip up next. The things that you're going to need to make this hot jar canning mitt are your outside fabric. This is going to be the fabric that's facing on top. You need one piece that measures 7 inches by 11 inches and two pieces that measure 7 inches by 6 inches. Your lining fabric, that's going to be the bottom fabric as well as the inside of the pocket. Those also measure one at 7 inches by 11 and two 7 inches by 6 inches. You're also going to need 100% cotton batting, one piece for the body and two pieces for the pocket in the same measurements. You're also going to need one piece of insul-brite, the same measurements as our body. Today I'll also be using some 1/2 inch wide double fold bias tape and two pieces of fabric that measure 6 inches by 2.5 inches. Now these pieces of fabric are just right here on the pocket. I just use these to add a little bit more color. If you don't want to do that, just go ahead and use your bias binding. I also went ahead and made a cardboard template that I made a PDF for, and it'll be down in the description box. I'll also be using some spray base just to base my layers together, but you could just use pins or a glue stick. I'll also be using my walking foot and my sewing machine with matching thread. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and make my quilt sandwiches. I grab my lining fabric and I'm going to put it so the right side is facing down. Next, I'm going to grab my piece of insul-brite and I'm going to lay that on top. After that, I'm going to take my cotton batting and I'm going to lay that over my insul-brite, followed by my top fabric with the right side facing up. Now at this point, you just want to go ahead and baste these together. Like I said, I'll be using the spray based, but I'm not going to spray it on here. A lot of you have noticed I got a new mat here, and I'm going to try to keep it clean. I got a comment from a guy that asked me if I cleaned my deer on my mat because it was so dirty. No, I do not, but I do about everything else on my mat. I got this new mat for Christmas, and I'm going to try to keep it as clean as I can. We'll see how long that lasts. Now for our pocket sandwiches, it's the same process. We want our lining fabric with the right side facing down, followed by our cotton batting, and then our top fabric. You want to do that to both pieces. Now that I have these all basted together, we're going to head over to the sewing machine and quilt these layers together. Alright guys, so I'm over here at my sewing machine. Today I'll be using my walking foot. I have black thread in my machine. I'll be using a straight stitch, and for these pockets my length is a 3. Now I'm just going to crazy quilt these. That way you don't have to worry about straight lines or distances or anything like that. So I start about a 1/2 inch into my project, and I'm going to sew at a diagonal down. I'm going to raise my presser foot, spin. Now I'm going to start about a 1/2 inch away from this and do another diagonal line down. Spin and do the same thing. So now I'm just going to do the exact same thing going the other way. Just like that. And this way, if you make a mistake, you can just tell them it's supposed to be that way. Now you want to do the exact same thing to your other pocket. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing to the body of our bag, but I'm going to raise my stitch length to a 3.5 just to get through all these layers. Alright guys, so I have these all sewed together here, and these are the backs. And as you can see here, some of my fabric slipped, but that's okay, because now we're just going to trim these down. The 7 by 11 rectangle we're going to trim down to 6 by 10, and the 6 by 7 rectangles we're going to trim them down to 5 by 6. So to do that, I'm going to cut a 1/2 inch off of each side. So you should have something that looks like this. So now I'm just going to finger press my binding over and flip it to the other side. When I line up my binding, I just want it just past the seam that we just made. And now I'm going to take this back over to my sewing machine, and using a zigzag stitch, I'm going to stitch all the way down, attaching my binding. I'll meet you over at the sewing machine. I switched my stitch to a zigzag stitch. My length is a 3 and my width is a 3. So I'm just going to zigzag all the way down, attaching my binding. Now using the template, I'm going to round off the sides here. So now you just want to round your corners. Now as you can see here, I already did, but I made a mistake. I lined up the top of my template with the top of my rectangle, and that's not what you want to do. You want to line up your template with the bottom of our rectangle, and then go ahead and round your corners. And for our body piece, you want to do it to both of the short sides. Now with the body of our mitt facing up, I'm going to take my pocket piece and line up our rounded edges. And I'm going to throw some pins in here just so they don't move. Finally, we just want to attach our binding. Now this part can be pretty tricky and look pretty messy. You just want to take it nice and slow. This is a lot of fabric to go through. Now I always like to start on the back when I attach my binding. And if you've never used bias binding before, one side is a little bit longer than the other. So we want to unfold the short side. And for the beginning here, I'm going to fold this over about a 1/2 inch. Next, I'm just going to place this edge on the raw edge of my mitt. And I like to stick a pin just to hold it in place. So now I'm just going to take this over to my sewing machine, and using a straight stitch, my length is going to be about a 3.5, maybe even a 4. This is pretty thick. I'm going to sew right in this crease. Now the great thing about bias binding is it kind of bends a little bit, so it's perfect to go around these corners. You just want to take it nice and slow. When I get back to my end here, I'm going to overlap about a ½ inch and backstitch. Alright guys, so I'm over here at my sewing machine. Like I said, I'll be using a straight stitch. I'm going to start out at a 3.5 for my length, and I may have to up that to 4. Now this is a lot of fabric, so it might be a little clunky, so you just need to go nice and slow. And it helps if you have a nice, fresh, sharp needle. So I'm just going to backstitch here in the beginning. And just keep sewing. So I like to curve my binding around the edge and just sew a little bit at a time. So I'm coming up to my end here. I want to overlap my binding by a ½ inch and then snip off the extra. And I'm going to sew this down and backstitch at the end. Alright guys, so it should look like this. Here is our beginning where we folded it over a ½ inch. Now you just want to tuck our end piece right into there. And when we fold this over, we have a nice ending point with no raw edges. So now I'm just going to take this back over to my sewing machine, and using the same zigzag stitch that we used right here, I'm going to finish off my binding. But before I do that, I'm going to have to trim off a little bit of this extra fabric. I got a little wile here on my corner, and this will actually be in our way when we go to turn our binding. So what I'm going to do is take my template again. I'm going to line it up with the edge of my binding and cut off any of this extra fabric. I changed my stitch to a zigzag stitch. My length is a 3 and my width is a 4. You want to backstitch at the beginning and the end. And when you come to your corners here, just take it nice and slow. And there you have it. Now our hot jar canning mitt is finished. And I won't have any more burnt fingers. Now this size is perfect for my big hands, but of course you could shrink the pattern to make it fit yours. Now this would make the perfect gift to go along with my quilted canning mat for any of your favorite canners out there. But you don't have to just use this for canning, you could just use it to get your casseroles out of the oven. I hope you give this video a try. If you like this video and want to see more of my videos, go down below and hit the big red subscribe button and give this video a big thumbs up. If you'd like to be notified as to when I post a new video, hit that bell button. If you have a question about this video or any of my other videos, or would just like to leave a suggestion for a future upcoming video, leave me a comment. Feel free to share this video across your social medias. Head on over to Facebook and Twitter at Scrappy's Patch if you'd like to be my friend over there. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.